Susan Crabtree is an investigative journalist, and she has been all over the Secret Service story from day one. I don't think there's anyone better out there who has come up with more insights and research into what's been happening at the Secret Service, everything from Butler to the DEI to the lack of morale today. She's also the author of a must-read book on California. We'll get into that as well, but she joins us now on Talk Radio 1210 WPHD. Susan Crabtree, how are you, my friend?
Doing great, Rich. Very busy, but doing well.
Good. Well, I appreciate you making time for us today on this very busy day. This audio that we have of this Secret Service confrontation that took place at former President Barack Obama's house, and these two women who were there, and this happened at like what, 2:30 in the morning or something like that.
That's right. 2:30 last week, Tuesday morning.
All right, 2:30 last week, Tuesday. It's kind of all coming to light now. So let's play a clip for everybody. And I know, Susan, since everybody can see you as well, we can get your reaction to this. So here's the actual, let's see if I can, the video of the fight here between the two women, Secret Service agents, outside of former President Barack Obama's residence last week. One of the officers called the supervisor, told the supervisor to come. This is cut 28. This is video now where you can see the fight, and it does not have any audio, but we can describe it for you. And then let's go to cut 29. This is now the officer calls a supervisor to come, and take a listen to that. Cut 29. Okay. I will whoop this girl's ass. Susan Crabtree, this sounds like it cannot possibly be the Secret Service. This sounds like this could be some sort of, I don't know, school guard in Philadelphia or something like that.
Yeah, or Jerry Springer show. It's really disconcerting to know that this is what this individual, she's a member of the uniform division, which is kind of like a Secret Service police. Their main mission is to guard the White House itself. But she thinks this is appropriate behavior when another Secret Service agent, officer, was late in coming to relieve her. That was the origin of the fight. That was what she was upset about. And the fact that this person decided to call on a recorded line and use expletives, threatening a fellow officer, is just the height of the epitome of unprofessional behavior. And it's raising serious concerns again about whether the Secret Service is committed to getting rid of its DEI policies, its hiring practices that date back to President Obama and were accelerated under President Biden. Certainly, Trump has said he has issued an executive order saying we're going to jettison these policies, and what's come of it at the Secret Service? There is no transparency into what's happened other than they did put, like every other agency, put their DEI officials, those devoted to DEI programs within the agency, on paid administrative leave. That's all we know as of now.
Now, I was on Newsmax today talking about this, and I brought up the fact that you had written about a whistleblower last year who came forward and said that the DEI policies cost him a promotion. And immediately the Democrat on the panel jumps in and goes, there's no evidence that this is attributable to DEI. But we know there was a whistleblower who came forward, Susan Crabtree, because you wrote about it at Real Clear Politics.
That's right. His name is Rashid Ellis. He has a lawsuit against the Secret Service detailing how he believed that he was denied a promotion and that that a woman agent got that, and also a big sort of a racketeering, almost to that level, a conspiracy against him to deny him a position in a drone, the drone division that focuses on drones. It's unbelievable what they did to this person, and it just shows the type of leadership that Kimberly Cheadle under President Biden was running before she was forced out after the assassination attempts. She basically accused this agent of alcoholism when he was a teetotaler and was very well known to be a teetotaler, and put him on administrative leave and threatened his security clearance. Basically because he kept applying for this promotion and speaking out about it when he was denied and passed over for a woman. So he believes that the assassination attempts, especially the one in Butler, had everything to do with DEI hiring policies. And as you know, it was just discussed before, there were three female agents, one that was extremely experienced and was in charge of the site security at Butler, and that the congressional reports and an independent review board said she was inexperienced and had no business leading the site security for that day.
And the drone thing too, because you remember that day that the guy was calling like a 1-800 number or something, I guess like the help desk at Staples or Best Buy to try to figure out how the drone would work. This is the day of the Butler assassination attempt on the president. So clearly that was a division that needed a lot of help. So that really burns me right there. But thinking of this fight outside of former President Barack Obama's home and the uniform division, and I've dealt with these agents every time I've been to the White House. They're always very professional, intimidating. At least the people that are there now all seem to be very, very competent. But I mean, the idea that you could have this kind of a Jerry Springer level fight, and these agents or these officers are distracted, is a threat to a former president. So you would imagine the left would be screaming about this as well and saying, why are we not putting the best on Barack Obama? Do we not care about his life? Is this the kind of quality agent you'd put on him? Nope, crickets. In fact, even suggesting the notion that these are DEI hires gets blasted with, well, now you're just being racist.
I know. I mean, it's incredibly troubling to me that you can't even talk about DEI in this context. Last year, before the assassination attempts, we had another issue that raised DEI questions before the assassination attempt. And that was involving another female agent who had a mental breakdown at Joint Base Andrews. She was attached to Kamala Harris's detail, and she had a scuffle with her supervising officer, and she had a gun on her, so they had to wrestle her to the ground and relieve her and carry her out in handcuffs. And that too raised DEI concerns. And I found out through my reporting that the then director, Kimberly Cheadle, when she was in charge of the training center, the Secret Service's training center, approved this woman, let her pass through, even though she failed several training tests. So this is a problem about lowering of standards. You can call it DEI, or you can call it lowering of standards across the board, because they have been very difficult in recent years to retain agents and officers at the Secret Service. Now they're offering $50,000 bonuses and $40,000 sign-up bonuses and retention bonuses to keep people on board. They're extremely stretched thin and have been since the campaign season, and they're leaving in droves. I'm told to go to the Drug Enforcement Agency, to U.S. Marshals, and surveys have shown that they have one of the lowest morales in all of the federal agencies.
That's terrible. We have to have, it's essential that we've got great people guarding not just the president, but high levels of people in our government. Susan Crabtree is with us. She's also the author of the book Fool's Gold, which is a must-read book on California. There's an issue in California I wanted to bring up to everybody's attention as well. We actually put the picture on our YouTube so everybody can see it right now. And you tweeted this out earlier today, and follow Susan on X at Susan Crabtree. New details about a public California high school. So Susan, what are we looking at here in this picture?
I hate to put it out there, such a graphic photo, but I wanted to shock the conscious. I wanted to make people aware of what's going on in California public schools. This is a so-called science of BDSM expert, who obviously practices it too, who was invited to speak at a local public high school as part of an LGBTQ plus Pride Week, known as Ally Week, where other people are invited to the cafeteria at lunchtime, all the students, to listen to these speakers. He also is a representative of DAP Health, which is a clinic that performs gender transition surgeries and gender transition medical care on people as young as 16. So this, the parents were deeply, deeply concerned, and they reacted to this. Now, the principal says it's none of his business. He has no obligation to notify the parents or to approve the speakers at this student club on campus. That it's all, they have the right to invite or disinvite. So after the public scrutiny of this, it went viral on social media, one post locally, about 2 months ago in late March, they did disinvite, the club did disinvite that speaker, but there were other speakers from gender transition support services and one from the Navy that helped servicemen and women gender transition, counselor, a psychologist, that actually gave out his cell phone number personally to the students to call him with any questions after he coached them on how to qualify and what words, buzzwords to use to qualify for gender dysphoria to get these types of surgeries and care.
I'm just, it's the public school system. The reason why I think it's very relevant is in New Jersey, we have an election coming up for governor. Thank God Phil Murphy is term limited, but he ran and said he wanted to make New Jersey the California of the East Coast. And I was listening to an interview with a guy running for governor by the name of Steve Sweeney. He used to be the Senate president, Democrat, and he was asked the question, do you want to make New Jersey the California of the East Coast? And he said, oh, hell no. The tide has shifted a lot in Democrats in terms of where they want it to be when they grow up. But it's very obvious that under the surface, they are still trying to push through so much of this wokeism and this ideology in public schools and in colleges. And we're seeing this fight and this battle play out right now. And I think if anybody thinks that the battle is over, no. We could say we've won the battle, but we have not won the war. The war is not over by a little bit. They're still going here, and they're pushing for this. And it's only because people like you, Susan Crabtree, at Real Clear Politics, are exposing this kind of stuff in Ally Week and the other craziness in the schools that we're learning about this stuff. But if we don't pay attention to this, we've got real problems. Now, I want to switch to another California story, and that is regarding Kamala Harris, who may run for president or governor, excuse me. Kamala Harris was directly involved in a cover-up of Joe Biden, as we all know now, who had lost his freaking mind and should have been removed by the 25th Amendment. And as all these stories come out now about how they were going to have this shadow government, and they had this shadow government, Susan Crabtree, I got to ask you, I mean, if she runs for governor of California, is she going to be held accountable for this? Because she was under the Constitution. I mean, the vice president is the one who is supposed to assemble the cabinet and have a vote on the 25th Amendment. And if there's no, I mean, this is why there's a 25th Amendment to the Constitution.
Well, I seriously worry about it in California that she will not be held accountable. Certainly, when she entered the first, well, teased about that she may enter the governor's race. Other candidates didn't withheld their entry into the race at first, but recently that's not been the case. We have a lot of Xavier Becerra, who was Biden's HHS secretary. He entered the race. There's the lieutenant governor, Gavin Newsom's lieutenant governor, who entered the race. There's the superintendent of schools that actually launched civil rights investigations into school districts that wanted parental notification. He's in the race as well. So you have such a fractured group, such a divided field, that only the people with the highest name recognition, including Kamala Harris, could emerge from that field in our jungle primary. And on the Republican side, we are starting to have more candidates, at least 2 or 3 are appearing, Steve Hilton and a local sheriff named Chad Bianco. So I am deeply concerned that because the Republican field is divided and there's a crowded Democratic field, that Kamala Harris and maybe even a second Democrat, Katie Porter, former Congresswoman, who ran for Senate and lost to Adam Schiff, she's also in the mix as well. So it could be Katie Porter and Kamala Harris because they have the top name recognition. I am not putting it past the state's voters not to elect Kamala Harris. So no, I'm deeply concerned about this. There are efforts on the Republican side from Richard Grenell, Trump's special envoy, who served as his DNI intelligence director during his first term. He is trying to register California voters that he has identified as conservative, already registered 200,000 in the last cycle, wants to register 400,000 by 2026, so next year, raising a lot of money to do so. So that is the only strategic pathway I feel that anybody has a game plan to respond to, embolden conservative voters in the state, shift the tide red, and ensure that Kamala Harris is not elected.
I mean, is it I don't know how it works in the general election. Is it a Democrat versus a Republican in the general election?
No, it's the top two finalists.
So
So
it's
the
it's
top two vote getters.
two Democrats running against each other, basically.
Usually, the Republicans try to keep the field down to one Republican so that the Republicans have a chance because there are quite a few. There's millions of Republicans across the state. So last time when Adam Schiff won, Katie Porter got knocked out, and it was Steve Garvey, the former baseball Hall of Famer, who was the second candidate, but he didn't run a very robust campaign.
Yeah.
So it was Adam Schiff, of course, that won the Senate race.
Before I let you go, I wanted to ask you, Dan Bongino, Kash Patel, the FBI, they're now going to look into the cocaine at the White House, the January 6th pipe bombs, and the leak of the Supreme Court's Dobbs decision. Now, I think all these things are great. I hope something comes of this. The January 6th pipe bomb thing is really particularly interesting because about Kamala Harris. I mean, she was in the DNC building that day when they apparently found this pipe bomb, and they never evacuated her and they never locked down the area. They did nothing around it. So
Right.
we really need answers around these things.
Yeah, absolutely. It would be a big step for transparency to provide some. I think with Dan Bongino and he's actually reported a lot on his podcast before he left for the deputy director of the FBI position. And I think we have some of the same sources because I'm getting the same information that he reported on the cocaine incident. I reported late last year, and I will have more because I have FOIA documents that pertain to the cocaine from the Secret Service, that Kimberly Cheadle, the Secret Service director at the time, she wanted that cocaine evidence destroyed. And she asked people within the Secret Service to destroy it. And some of them resisted and were not promoted, even though one of them was African American, head of the uniform division. He resisted and said, no, we don't think that's following protocol to destroy this evidence. And then someone else who went forward with it and allowed the destruction, because we know from the FOIA documents that the cocaine itself was destroyed, but there are other tubes, they're called, that were containing DNA evidence that were maintained. That's what I think, according to the latest documents I could find that were produced for me. But yes, this is deeply concerning that there was some resistance in the Secret Service, but she overruled it. And some of them went ahead with it and have been retaliated against, and some didn't and were promoted.
My theory, Susan, is that the dogs sniffed all the cocaine, and that's why they went crazy and bit all the Secret Service agents. But I can't prove that. But that's the movie I'm making called Cocaine White House Dogs, and it's going to be huge this summer. So
it would be huge. That would go viral, definitely.
Yeah.
Well, the idea that this cocaine that supposedly a lot of the different changes on where it was found, a lot of different stories about that. I had that explained to me by a knowledgeable Secret Service source that seems plausible to me. But so it was found in these cubbies as you enter the West Wing, that low-level staffers or visitors would put in.
Right.
So
Right.
I'm very highly suspect of whatever the Secret Service says about the cocaine incident, because Jill Biden was so close to Kimberly Cheadle, the director at the time, handpicked her. And so they had and now we know a lot more about the Jill Biden cover-up of the cognitive disrepair of Biden's the lack of cognitive ability. So if she is willing to do that for Joe Biden, what is she willing to do to cover up this cocaine in the White House? Working with Kimberly Cheadle, her handpicked director, who also she had got a private sector job at PepsiCo in between her stints at the Secret Service.
I'm before I let you go, let me just say, I'm one of the few people in politics who's never tried cocaine. I was always afraid I'd like it too much and become addicted because I get addicted to everything. But I wouldn't rule out that they maybe put a little in Biden's drink the night of the State of Union address, because the way that guy came out of the gate and then was just, but they clearly did not give it to him the night of the debate. So that's all I'm going to say. And we can just leave it there. But Susan Crabtree, as always, you are truly one of the best and brightest investigative journalists out there. We are so grateful to have your friendship on this show. So please follow Susan on X at Susan Crabtree and get her book, Fool's Gold, if you haven't yet. It's a must read on California with a lot of lessons that we all need to pay attention to. Susan, thank you.
Absolutely, Rich. It's great to be on with you again, as always.
It's the 5 o'clock happy hour on the Rich Cioli Show. Brought to you by the Oceanfront Grand Hotel of Cape May, New Jersey. A premier full-service resort and conference center. GrandHotelCapeMay.com.
All right, so Minnie, who is the